There aren't a lot of Jews on campus, right? They're not.
No, we struggle to get a minion.
Yeah. It's just, okay. We started Ches yesterday. We saw this at the end of Shir. We saw this amazing idea that the Rebbe says, and of course it's an attempt meaning it's not just an attempt. It explains to us how all of the levels of Pode, every different level of Pode is really Pode besholom. Even Tefillah, which we're going to explain further as we go today. Even Tefillah, which we call a beer of Ba'ifin Shel Melchama, the battle of Tefillah. Why? So the Rebbe quotes the line in the Alter Rebbe in Perek Mem Aleph, and there the Alter Rebbe says, let's just quote it, Kedisha the Tanya, 4 lines up, the Eisek Torah v'mitzvahs v'tefillah, involvement in Torah and mitzvahs and tefillah, hu inyan mesiras nefesh mamish, is an expression of mesiras nefesh. Now, you could explain that more generally in the Alter Rebbe, that mesiras nefesh is also often understood as simply giving away, and this the Friedrich Rebbe talks about this at great length, of Mesira means to give away, to give, limsar, means to give over. So mesiras nefesh is give my soul. So simple pshat obviously is a person is willing to give up their life for Kadosh Baruch Hu. But in a Veda, it can also be simply mesiras haratzon, giving up my will for Kadosh Baruch Hu's will, allowing Kadosh Baruch Hu's will to shine through my thought, speech, and action, even though I might have my own personal desires to do whatever it is that I'm interested in doing. And that's the most basic, not the most common, but a very basic expression of mesiras nefesh. So that might be how someone can explain the Alter Rebbe, but the Rebbe does not explain the Alter Rebbe that way at all. Here, there's a big chiddush in what the Rebbe says. When the Rebbe learns pshat in that Tanya, in this Maimer, that line in Tanya, the Rebbe says that means mesiras nefesh miyechidah shebenefesh, the highest level of mesiras nefesh, because as we said, mesiras nefesh, talked about it yesterday. Mesiras nefesh can be an expression not only of chaya nefesh, as we talked about yesterday, but also seichel, intellect. Intellect could come to the conclusion that it's reasonable to give up my life for his cause. Right? Again, the non-Jewish soldier, why is he giving up his life? He came to the intellectual conclusion that because of what's going on in the world, it might be reasonable to give up my life for my country, because if I don't do that, there won't be a country. Okay. That can be an intellectual decision. Now, obviously, that's going to be a level of mesiras nefesh that would be the easiest to undo, right? Because if you can convince him intellectually that that's an unreasonable position, so he might change his mind, right? And that's always the problem with intellect, right? Which we talked about earlier in the Maimer. If something comes from intellect, so it's going to be movable, possibly, right? Changeable. Okay, that's just the nature of intellect. And that's, in all fairness, that's one of the positive natures of intellect also, because if intellect was never willing to change, so then I would never ever come to understand things in a new and deeper, more intellectual way. So there's no question that people who can't get out of their whatever box they've created for themselves, their intellect is extremely limited. Okay. But there's a limitation to the extent that you might be persuaded otherwise. There's also the level of mesiras nefesh michaya shebenefesh. And again, this is shaykh to the Jew and the non-Jew, because there's a level of chaya shebenefesh for the non-Jew also. Right? And what's that? My will. I want to do something that is for the greater good. That's a wonderful thing to do. Right? Now, it's coming from me. There's still me there. But that doesn't mean that this action is a negative action. It's a very positive action. It just isn't completely selfless. There's me there. I want to do this. Why do I want to do this? I don't know. Whatever the reason it might be. Usually, why do I want to do things? Gives me pleasure. Right? Some sort of pleasure. I feel good about myself. Whatever it happens to be. So that level of mesiras nefesh is still mesiras nefesh. There's no question. Right? But obviously limited and not quite as powerful as the mesiras, not as powerful, I'll take the word quite out, not as powerful as the mesiras nefesh of Yechidah shebenefesh. Okay, now, but back to Chaya Shebenefesh. Chaya Shebenefesh, if the Jew's Mesiras Nefesh comes from Chaya Shebenefesh, he wants elokus more than anything else and is willing to give up his life for that. Still a function of his desire, but that's an amazing thing. Therefore, the Ratzon of, just to define what happens at that moment in that Jew's reality, the Ratzon of the Nefesh Elokis overcomes the Ratzon of the Nefesh Bahamis, and he does whatever it is that he understands the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants him to do. The Mesiras Nefesh Mamash. Okay, amazing. And that's the Mesiras Nefesh that the Friedrich Rebbe was talking about, giving up my Ratzon. In other words, what Ratzon? The Ratzon of Nefesh Bahamis, for the sake of the Ratzon of Nefesh Elokis. But obviously, that's not a Pode besholom. That's not a complete. Well, it is. Everything is. But it's not a complete victory, because the Ratzon of my Nefesh Bahamis didn't go away and it wasn't changed. It was just silenced at this particular point, right? For whatever reason. Doesn't matter what the reason is. For whatever reason, it was silenced. But might it rear its head tomorrow? Why wait till tomorrow? Right? Could be relatively soon. Okay, so if it was an act of Mesiras Nefesh, tremendous, again, when we say self-sacrifice, it doesn't mean I have to give up my life. The person worked very, very hard to overcome all sorts of negative influences and external and internal negative reality in order to push himself to do this mitzvah, mamish b'mesiras nefesh. He really worked hard to do that. Chaya shebenefesh came to a point where the will of his nefesh elokis overcame the will of his nefesh bahamis, and he emerged victorious. Beautiful, amazing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he won a battle, but the war is not over in any way, shape, or form. It's still that negative will is still there. Yechida shebenefesh, if a Jew touches that place, there is no other state of reality other than godliness in that place. So if I can access that part of my neshama, I'm accessing a place where all there is the Eibishter. And therefore all I'm interested in is the Eibishter. Not inside myself. It's not the Eibishter. In terms of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, what does the Kadosh Baruch Hu want? That's Mesiras Nefesh from Yechida shebenefesh. Which is an astounding thing. That's the Alter Rebbe saying, I don't want your Gan Eden, I don't want your Elam Haba, I just want you. All right? Meaning what? I'm not interested in any state of revelation, as amazing as that state of revelation is, because that desire for that state of revelation is because that revelation is incredibly pleasant for me. And I know you want me to have that pleasure. I get it. I'm not interested. I just want you. Now it's where you say, okay, so if you say to someone, well, I could I'll put it in crass monetary terms. I can give you $1 million, $10 million, or $1 billion. So of course I'm going to take $1 billion. Why would I take $10 million if I could have $1 billion? Right? Okay. So in terms of elokus, there's this level of revelation and this level, and then there's atzmos. So why wouldn't everybody be like the Alter Rebbe and want the billion as opposed to the 10 million? I don't understand. Why is that such a great thing that we tell this story over and over and over and over again about the Alter Rebbe? So what's the difference? There's no him there. On those first two levels, he's experiencing the pleasure of this revelation. On that level that he wants, he's not experiencing anything. He's not there. And that's what he wants. So I want to be completely encompassed by godliness to such an extent that it's all about him and not about me, to such an extent I don't even experience pleasure from the event. Why? Because I'm not there. That's the ultimate expression of Yechida shebenefesh. Okay. And where is that expressed in Jewish history? Moshe asked yesterday, has that ever happened?
Sure.
Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh. Jews giving up their lives. What are they getting out of it? Pleasure? What pleasure? I understand. They just the line in Yiddish that explains it, and it's often translated into Lashon Kodesh in Maimarim, Azoy v'nitandrish. This is the way it is, and there is no other way. Right? It would be like someone saying, accessing that place would make things so clear. It would be like someone saying to you, okay, I'll let you live if you let me cut off your head. There's no equation. Okay, so for the Yid, when there's a full revelation of Yechida shebenefesh, I'll let you live if you'll be Mechal Shabbos. Exactly the same equation. As I'll let you live and let me cut off your head. No, there's no such thing. It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as being separate from the Eibishter and the Jews in that place. But put it a slightly different way. There is no separation from Kadosh Baruch Hu if in that place that we all are. I mean, that's part of me. Right? Okay, that's the deepest, most essential part of me, which is very hard to access. Well, the Rebbe just said an astounding thing yesterday. Every single mitzvah that you and I ever do, including sitting here right now, behelem, there's an expression of Yechidah Shebenefesh, the essence of the soul, that aspect of you and I that cannot be separate from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's the ultimate, innermost explanation, so to speak, of what we're doing right now. I'll have all sorts of other stuff. I'll explain it to you, right? Why I'm sitting here, right? And it might be a little less or more involved in my own relationship with myself. Might be a little more God, a little less God, a little more me, a little less me in terms of how I might explain rationally why I'm here. Okay. But what's the Panemius Sheba Why are we sitting here? Because our Nefesh Elokis can't be separate from the Eibishter. That's what Rabbi said yesterday, which is just absolutely astounding. And therefore we understand that every single level of Padiyah, any action that brings about that notion of being Pode something, elevating it, it's all coming from that. It's all Pode besholom. It's in Pode besholom on the highest level. This is, right? 3 different levels we saw of Pode besholom. It's the highest level, the level of the second kufa of Yemei Mashiach, which is the level of Re'iyah. Because on that level of neshama, how does the neshama relate to the Eibishter? Beyond Re'iyah, right? It's just absolute oneness. You don't have to see yourself. Right? You're experiencing yourself. Okay. I might have to see my hand. If all of a sudden my hand hurts, I'll look at it. Oh my gosh, how did I get that cut? Where'd that come from? Okay, so I'm looking at my hand. I get it. But, see the problem with men looking in mirrors. So, women are supposed to look in mirrors. Men are not supposed to look in mirrors. When they built the Beis Chana, Machon Chana, for the Baalei Teshuva in Crown Heights, so the Rebbe went to see what they had put together, and the Rebbe told them there should be a mirror in every dorm room so the girls can check themselves. There's a yeshiva's joke. Not a joke, it's a riddle. There's a Torah riddle. What are 2 things that together, that's separate, they are allowed, but together they're forbidden? That's the easy one. I don't know, now I said it, and then once you say it's easy, then no one gets it, because they say, oh no, separate, they're both permitted, but together they're forbidden. Basar b'cholov, milk and meat. Okay, wool and linen. Okay, that one's easy. Then there's the hard part of the riddle. What are the 2 things that are forbidden, but when you put them together, they're mutter? That's a hard one. So I'm not going to wait around. Right? Now you might get upset at this, but I don't know why. Because the reason there's a halacha like this is because this is what they used to do. So you're not allowed to get a haircut. In the old days, I don't know whether anyone would paskin this way today, but in the time of the Gemara, they asked getting a haircut from a non-Jewish barber. Why? It'd kill you. Right? Okay. So, gee, we're terrible. We're so not nice to the goyim. We don't let them give us haircuts. Right? Oh yeah, it's definitely our issue. We're really not nice. We should be open-minded to the goyim. Right? So they're killing us, and we have to be open-minded. Sounds familiar. Really so you're not allowed to get your hair cut from a non-Jew, and a man is not allowed to look in a mirror. But if you were looking in a mirror, you're allowed to get your hair cut from a non-Jew. Oh, yeah. If there's a mirror there, you're allowed to, because you're gonna, if he takes that thing that he's going like this with, and he wants to chas v'sholom use it somewhere else, so then you can see him. You have to be fast for Seder. Okay, you probably, I mean, I'd imagine you probably are if you think there's a chance that this guy might want to kill me. I think he'll probably be looking in the mirror pretty serious. So that mirror you're allowed to look at, right? So now, I mean, obviously you're allowed to look in a mirror if someone tells you you have a chicken bone stuck on your, you can't see it, so you go, but for a man to look in a mirror and, it's also, you're not allowed to do that. Men are not allowed to do that. Women are, men are not. Right? So look in the mirror to see if you've got toothpaste left in your mustache. That's okay, right? But not to... What are you going to do? It's tough being Jewish, My goodness gracious. I'm not allowed to prim in front of a mirror? Gee whiz. God drives a hard bargain. Okay, so everything we do has a piece of Yechida, the Rebbe says, which is absolutely astounding. Okay, so let's start from the fourth line up. We didn't get to the end of the page. The cave and Shamitis in the Mesiris Nefesh, 3 lines up with the word with the different font. The cave and Shamitis in the Mesiris Nefesh mamish. Right, meaning a person literally giving up their life for the Eibush. Who Mesiris Nefesh mitzad Yechida is Mesiris Nefesh that comes as a result of that 5th level of the soul that we talked about yesterday. Why? Because on that level there is no opposition, as the Rebbe said earlier. Harinimsa, in other words, I haven't just won a battle. There is no war on that level. Harinimsa shebachol inyan the Torah and mitzvahs. Every aspect of Torah and mitzvahs, afilu in yonim apshutim, even the simplest things, the Torah and mitzvahs. She'ilmale nitna Torah chas v'shalom. That if the Torah weren't given chas v'shalom, Chazal say this, right? Hayu l'meidim asam mi behemas haaretz. We might learn this proper behavior from certain animals. We'd learn sneas from a cat, etc., etc. We learn Erevin that talks about the different things that we'd learn from animals. We learn zrizus. We learn alacrity from the ant. Right? There's an amazing Gemara in Menachos, I think it is. I didn't see the Gemara actually. I looked at it years and years and years ago, but I learned about the Gemara from the Maharal we were talking about yesterday. So the Maharal explains the Gemara, but the Gemara, it's an amazing Gemara. The Shlomo Melech says, Lech el nemala lates, go atzel, go to the ant, lazy one, ra'ei dracheh v'chachem, see his ways and become wise, because the ant, Shlomo Melech says, the ant doesn't have a king, and yet the ant doesn't have a king, and yet they do everything that they have to do. Right? Based on their own understanding of what has to get done. So Chazal wanted to figure out if this is true or not. Do they have a king? So they did an experiment. They watched the ants for a while. They found an anthole and they watched them, and they noticed that they come out in the shade. They don't like when the sun's out. They wait for there to be shade, and then they come out and do their thing and pull their leaves and do all that and make their lines and all that stuff. Okay, so those were the ants, what they were looking at, that's how they acted. So they decided they wanted to see what would happen. They put a large sheet or something over the ant hole so there was shade. So an ant came out to check out things. Well, okay, it's shady out here, Chevra, we can go. But they put a little mark on that ant. They put a little mark on him, so a paint. Right? Okay. So he goes back in and he says, okay, Chabad, it's shady out there, let's go. So then they all pour out of the anthole and then they move the thing. And lo and behold, they all ganged up on that guy and killed him. Huh? This is what it says in the Gemara. They did this evidently, right? They ganged and they killed him. So they said, they must not have a king, like Shlomo Melech said, because if they had a king, what would they have had to do? Take him to the king, right? There must be a way you do this, right? So then the other half of the argument said, well, no, but maybe not. Maybe there's just a rule that's what you do to guys. The king made the rule. Who knows who made the rule? There's a rule that you kill someone who does this, so they just killed him right away. So they said, okay, we can't figure it out from here. You can't prove it one way or the other, so we must have to just listen to Shlomo Melech. That's what they say in the Gemara. So the Maharal brings this Gemara and discusses it about what Zrizus is. So you can learn Zrizus from an ant. So in other words, even those things that are so mundane, and not that they're not important, but they're so obvious and intuitive that I would learn from an animal, even those things. When we do that, even the most simple, basic behavior patterns in Elam Hazeh that are absolutely reasonable, and even animals act that way. Astounding. Even in that, there's Mesiras Nefesh. Why? Well, the bottom line of it all, and this has a lot to do with the way the Eibishter created the world and why he created the world the way he created the world, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything. The Eibishter created the world, put you down here. He told you what to do. There's no question. Meaning, ultimately, you have to keep Shabbos, you have to eat kosher, you have to learn Torah, you have to put on tefillin, you have to not do other things. There's no question. But you really don't have to. You can do whatever you want. The Eibishter created the world in such a way that you can do whatever you want, right? I think we talked about it yesterday, right? You could sit at a computer and write a book about the fact that the Eibishter doesn't exist, and at that point, in that moment, you're getting your existence from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And you and I wouldn't do it that way. There's no way. Okay. So therefore, if we do connect him, it's because we have some essential connection. And that essential connection is somehow emanating downward into our conscious reality such that we do those conscious actions that are a function of our connection to him. But what's the true source of it? Our essential connection, the Rebbe says. Everything we do. The Yesedim is there. Shegama avona v'asoga. We're getting there. Last full page. Gama avona v'asoga the Torah. Even those aspects of understanding and comprehending Torah, which intellect is, to a certain degree, almost the most powerful expression of self. Right? I mean, the fact that you and I can do something against the will of a Kadosh Baruch Hu is only as a result of the fact that we have this thing called intellect. Those creatures that don't have intellect can't do anything against the will of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. They just do whatever they're programmed to do. Lions do what lions do. Lions can't decide, oh, maybe I'll identify as a leopard. That just doesn't happen. Right? So you used to explain that differently. Now you have to explain it that way. Right? So intellect is a very powerful expression of self. Even though, interesting, the true intellect is an expression of is an objective reality as opposed to a subjective reality. And emotion is all subjective me, and intellect is really objective reality. But intellect is still a place where I can feel myself very, 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 very powerfully.
Rabbi, so Mesiras Nefesh, it's confined to a being that has intellect.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's shaykh. Yeah, someone who makes decisions. No. I mean, animals make certain decisions, but I mean, would you call the fact that the mother lion is willing to give up her life for her baby's Mesiras Nefesh? No, it's just there's a chip in there that's just what she's going to do. Yeah, I mean, that's instinct. That's what we call it, right? Now, what the Rebbe is saying here, on a certain level, is your instinct, mitzad your yechidah shebenefesh, is to connect to the Eibishter. That's instinctual, so to speak, because that's just who you are. Okay, Seder, but there's so many things going on in the way you and I make decisions with that. But the Rebbe is saying that behind it all, it's just who you really are. Every time you connect to the Eibishter. It's still possible for us not to connect to the Eibishter. Why? Because we have this Nefesh Bahamis who might make decisions that are not healthy. Yeah? Right? Did you want to say something?
Yes. So if it's creatures that have seichel that can have this Mesiras Nefesh, does it also mean that angels can have a form of Mesiras Nefesh?
No, because they don't have a Nefesh Bahamis. They don't have any contrary. There's no Aveda. They sing, but there's no contrary force such that they would have to battle anything. So they're just, so they're in a constant state of connection to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. We only call the expression of Yechidah Shebenefesh Mesiras Nefesh down here because of the circumstance down here that might call for Mesiras Nefesh. There's a circumstance down here that might call for that. In the most obvious way. Some guy wants to, chas v'sholom, kill this Jew. Okay, well, the angels don't deal with that. It's just not happening in their world. Right? Okay, so on the level of avodah, what's the Mesiras Nefesh? I have a desire to do something. I mean, that's what we just said. I have a desire or the possibility of doing something else. Therefore, the mitzvah is Mesiras Nefesh. The angel has no desire or ability to do anything else. So there's no Mesiras Nefesh up there. He just is what he is. Now that's on one hand, that's a function of the reality he finds himself in, which is a reality of revelation, and also he's a very lofty being, true, but he's nothing compared to us. Right? In many Maimarim, what did the Rebbeim explain? Why does the Eibishter seem to get a kick out of Golus? Mesiras Nefesh. What does Golus reveal in the Jew? His deepest connection to the Eibishter. That's why everybody else is gone, and we're still here. Because they aren't going to have that level of Mesiras Nefesh to maintain whatever they believe in, etc. So the Assyrians disappeared, and the Romans, they already disappeared. Why? Well, someone bigger came along, and Phil came along and beat them up. Right? You know Phil? They once asked a 2,000-year-old man how he started. When did people start believing in God? So he said, well, before God, we believed in a guy named Phil. Because Phil was very tough. And whatever Phil said, we had to do. So we believed in Phil. Then one day, Phil was hit by lightning and died. And we all said, there's someone bigger than Phil. And then we figured it out. Okay. So unless there's a Phil making life difficult, I don't have to be Mesiras Nefesh. Now the Phil could be an external force, or the Phil can be an internal source, right? I think Nefesh Abamis. So you have to be Mesiras Nefesh. And that's exactly what the Mesiras Nefesh is. I don't have to do this. I'm not going to do anything. I can do whatever I want in Elam Hazeh. That's the way the Eibishter created the world, which is really astounding, right? Again, of course I know we have to do this, right? But bottom line, do you have to do anything? You can do whatever you want. The Eibishter created the world, you can do whatever you want. You want to sit on a beach and dig holes and watch the waves fill them up, and then fill them up yourself and dig another one, and that's all you're ever going to do. Every now and then you're going to have to go eat and you're going to go sleep, but somehow you're taken care of financially, and that's all you want to do in life. So go do that. You're off, you're cracked. Okay, Mercedes, you're allowed to be cracked. Right? You can do anything you want. So someone who decides that they're going to connect to the Eibishter in Elam Hazeh, Yid, where's that coming from? That's coming from the place in the Yid that he can't do anything he wants because he's got this essential connection to the Eibishter that he wants to express in Elam Hazeh. That's what the Rebbe is saying about every single mitzvah we do. Even those mitzvahs of intellect, which you would think are separate from such a place because I can explain intellectually in the most powerful way, meaning even Talmud Torah. So look what the Rebbe says. Even the Rebbe says, Shagama Avona Vasaga the Torah, he al Yedei, ultimately, where does that all come from? Our Talmud Torah, where does it come from? Yes, of course we want to understand. We want to understand the Torah, and we understand that by virtue of learning Torah, so it's going to help us accomplish certain things we want to accomplish, and we might have a taiva to finish certain pieces of Torah, because then I can say I finished something, etc., etc. Okay, those things, there's nothing wrong with those things. But even Talmud Torah, where's it ultimately coming from? Maybe that's such an amazing thing. What's our first relationship to Torah? We said we will do, then we'll understand. In other words, the bittul of Mesiras Nefesh of Nasa v'nishma. What's Nasa v'nishma? Nasa v'nishma means I don't have to understand it in order to do it. I'm doing it because it's you. Okay, I'll understand it also. Why am I going to understand it? Well, bottom line, why do you sit and learn Torah? Because God said so. That's what the Rebbe is saying. Of course you find it interesting, and of course you can figure out how it fits into a whole agenda that you might have in life, etc., etc. We all get that. Okay, fine. Say it. But bottom line, why does a Yid learn Torah? Because the Rebbe said learn Torah. The Rebbe said sit and learn Torah. So Jewish men sit and learn Torah. Jewish women also sit and learn Torah. But the learning of Jewish women is taka utilitarian. Why do women have to learn Torah? They have to learn Torah to know how to keep Shabbos and how to keep kosher, etc. They obviously have to know the laws of kashrus, right? you are relying on that woman to be your one aid, your witness that this food that she's serving you is kosher. That's when women's aidus is believed. To come as one of two aidim in a beis din, women cannot be aidim in a beis din. To say that Reuven killed Shimon. No. Okay, but when are women believed? Well, in real life. When are women believed? Every time you sit down in someone's house, I mean, usually the woman is the one cooking the food, right? Okay, what does that mean? That means she is testifying to you that food is kosher. The ingredients are kosher, and she prepared it properly. And you believe her. And that's why you're allowed to eat that food. She is the aid that is testifying to the kashrus of that food. We believe in cases where we believe one aid, which is in many instances, so a woman is believed as much as a man. Right? It's when we need two aidim that we don't. For whatever reason, it's because there's a pasuk. The pasuk says we learn from a pasuk there has to be two men, not two women. Okay, say it, fine. But do we believe? Because we believe women. Every time you eat in someone's house, you're believing a woman. She's testifying that the food is kosher. That happens a lot more than going to beis din, right? Okay.
That's why you say to them, you're right.
You're right. You're right. And the woman will, every man married to a woman will be told over and over again by her that, what are you doing putting that down there? That's the flavor, that's the melukat, right? That she's busy making sure that her kitchen is a kosher kitchen, and all the men in her life are trying to trafe it up by doing all sorts of stuff that she doesn't do, right? Because she's very, they say that women are much more women are gevura and men are chesed, so women are very strict and men are very lenient. So how do you see that? Well, there's two holidays that we have. One centers a lot around food, and one centers around other things. So the holiday centers all around food. That's Pesach. We're crazy strict in Pesach. Why? Well, women are in charge. We're crazy strict, right? The holiday that doesn't, there's food, but there's other things happening is Sukkot. Every heter in the world to figure out how the sukkah is a kosher sukkah, and it's a love food, and it's not a problem, and it's as long as there's a string and they're within 3 tefachim, that's called a wall. Yeah, that's called a wall. Right? That's called a wall. I can walk through that wall, right? Okay, but that's called a wall. We were discussing this in that we had issues. It was perfectly kosher sukkah, but we did have to rely on certain halachic. There were real halachic issues about the inyanim, about how to make certain walls a fourth wall. We had 3 that were perfectly good, but we wanted a fourth because in Lubavitch we have 4 walls. So the fourth wall was a bunch of straps, right? So within 3 tefachim. So some guy, originally South African, now lives in Australia, so he's there. Gary, great guy. He looks, he says, "What's that over there?" I said, "Well, that's a wall." I said, with this accent, which I can't do. He said, "What do you mean it's a wall?" I said, "A wall, it's a bunch of straps." He said, so I knew he would like this because he's an ex-hippie. He said, he was an interesting guy, actually. He used to go around Africa for the ANC, a white guy.
ANC?
For Nelson Mandela's, right? For the ANC all over Africa, speaking and doing some very interesting stuff before it all changed. He said, if I had ever gotten caught doing any of this stuff, I wouldn't be here now. But very interesting guy. So he said, "What do you mean?" So I knew he would like this. I said, "Halacha has a very interesting take on space." He goes, "Ooh." But it's true. Halacha has a really interesting take on space. So a piece of string, and then another piece of string, and another piece of string, and they're within 3 tefachim of each other. That's called a wall. That's a wall? It's not going to keep the rain out, it's not going to keep the wind out, but it's called a wall for a sukkah. That's a man's halacha. Tell that to a woman about Pesach. Not a chance. Right? Everything's got to be, okay. So, I don't know how we got there. But Nasiv and Nishma. What's Nasiv and about learning? Nasiv and Nishma. So a woman's learning Torah is utilitarian. She has to know halacha. She has to know kashrus. She has to know hilchos Shabbos, obviously. The Rebbe says she has to learn Chassidus. Why? Well, she has the mitzvah of Avos Hashem and Yiras Shamayim just like a man. She has to love God and fear God just like a man. And how are you going to do that? Well, you better learn some Chassidus. So a woman has to learn Chassidus. Okay. A man has a mitzvah, an extra mitzvah of Talmud Torah, which is learn Torah because it's Torah. Why do you put on tefillin? Because God said so. It helps me daven shachris. That's not why you put on tefillin. You put on tefillin because God said put on tefillin. Why do you learn Torah? Because God said learn Torah. Right? Learning about Eidim who come and testify that yes, that's our signature, but we happen to be under duress when we sign that. This has anything to do with what I'm doing in my life? No. Well, of course it does. Why? Because God said to learn it, so it's incredibly holy. Why are you learning it? Because of the Yechidah Shabbenefesh. So let's see what the Rebbe says here. Also, what was the acceptance of the Torah all about? Nasiv and Ishma. We're going to learn the Torah. We're going to understand. We're going to have to understand because you want us to understand. But we're going to learn the Torah simply because it's your Torah. And we're going to do everything just because you said to do it. Nasiv and Ishma. We'll do it. We'll figure it out later, but we're going to do it. We're not looking into it and deciding whether or not it's worth our time. That's Nasiv and Ishma. Every other nation, of course, that famous medrash, when the Eibishter, so to speak, offered them the Torah, what did they ask? What's in it? Interestingly enough, what did the Eibishter tell them? The thing that would be hardest for them, right? Adultery for the French, so to speak, right? Right? Don't murder for the Russian. Don't steal for the Arab, right? I mean, that's the modern version of the song in Yiddish, right? Okay. And what does the Torah say about Yishmael? Yad Yad is going to be into everything else. He's going to try to take everything that everybody else has and take it for him. Right? And that's what they do to this day. Right? Okay. That's their Yetzer Hara Seder. They also seem to like to kill people also, but they have a Yetzer Hara Seder. Okay. So the modern version has but interesting enough, the Eibishter asked every nation the thing that would be hard. No, I think actually the Russians was one God. I think that was it because the song was written when the Soviet Union was around. So right, the every nation was given the hardest thing, and they said no. What did the Yidden say? Yes, not interested in what's in it. Yeah, we'll take it. Why? Because it's you.
What was our hardest thing?
Well, we didn't ask. So it's we didn't the Eibishter didn't have to. We didn't ask what's in it. We just said Nasiv and Ishma. Right, that's the medrash, famous medrash. Exactly how this medrash works, I don't know. But in actuality, how does that all play out? I have no idea.
Didn't matter.
But the idea, the basic idea is the Nasiv and Ishma of the Yid. I'm not asking what's in it. Do you want to keep the Torah? Well, what's the Torah? It's my will and my wisdom. Yes, I want it. Now, what's in it for me? Well, what is it? It's me. Okay, yes. The Yid said Nasiv and Ishma. I don't understand fully the connection between this pasuk and Nasiv and Ishma and why the Rebbe is saying it. But Tumas Yisharim Tanchim is a pasuk in Mishlei that says that the purity of the straight ones is what guides them. So I think what the Rebbe is saying simply is what guides our actions since that moment is the moment of Nasiv and Ishma. I think that's what the Rebbe is saying. I'm not 100% sure why the Rebbe brings this pasuk here. But Tumas Yisharim Tanchim is a pasuk that says that if a person is striving to it's used in Chazal use it all the time to explain that if a person is striving to connect to truth, the Eibishter will guide him in the right way. The Eibishter will help him. Tumas Yesharim, the Tuma Miloshin Tamimut, right? To be a Tam, Yaakov Ish Tam, Yeshiva Elim, right? This week's Parsha. Yaakov is a pure person who sits and learns all day, does mitzvahs all day. That's Yaakov. Esav is something else. Okay. So that Tmimut of the straight ones is what guides them. The Inyan Agdam is Nasil and Nishma. What is the whole idea of Nasiv and Ishma? A very, very important thing that's talked about in Chassidus all the time. Habittel lebal haratzon. The connection, the bittel, the nullification to the one who has the will. And there's two different levels of bittel. There's bittel to a Kadosh Baruch Hu's will. I'll do whatever he says. And then there's bittel to Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's obviously a higher level. I could be bittel to what a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants. Okay. So I'll do whatever he wants. Or I'm bottled to him. I'm not simply his desire, but to him himself. My relationship is with him, not his. I don't worship Shulchan Aruch, I worship God. What's Shulchan Aruch? That's the Ratzon of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Is that holy? It's completely holy. Is there a level beyond that? Yes, the Eibishter. Whatever the Eibishter wants. Right? Because the relationship is with the Eibishter. And interesting enough, when will that, when will it, what's the nafkamina? What'll the difference be? Well, there might be a time when it's necessary to be, again, there's so many times when you have conflicting halachas. The most classic example for men, there's an Erev that you don't hold by. Okay. Your wife does because she pushes the carriage to shul. That's the only way she can get to shul because of that Erev. I'm not talking about the Erev in Crown Heights. I'm talking about, the Rebbe said don't make an Erev in Crown Heights. So don't rely on any Erev in Crown Heights if someone decided to make one. The Rebbe said clearly doesn't want an Erev in Crown Heights. Talking about, here in Yerushalayim, there's an Erev. Are all parts of the Erev in line with the Alter Rebbe's halachas regarding Erev? No. So most Lubavitchers in Yerushalayim don't carry unless they have to. Okay, so when are times when they have to? Bochrim, on Mitzayim, Shabbos afternoon, doing Mesivas Shabbos with the kids in neighborhoods all over Yerushalayim, and they're carrying stuff for the kids to take home and read, and they're also carrying candies and stuff. They're going to be Mekel on the Erev and Machmir on Avos Yisrael, helping these kids, right? Okay. Your wife pushed the carriage to shul. Okay. You can be very frum. It says in Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, and so I can't use the Erev. Okay, good. Wait, hold on. What about your wife? Right? She your Shabbos guy? She's going to push the kid home? Right? So maybe you're going to be more makpid on Shalom Bayis and less makpid on the Erev, going home. Oh, that's probably a good idea, right? Because those things happen in life all the time, right? Because halakha is these little boxes that don't encounter real life. They encounter real life. So in real life, I'll end up having certain situations where I have to choose exactly what I'm going to be stricter about and what I'm going to be more lenient about, right? I'm not saying this as a halacha. I'm just saying it as an idea. I once heard from a Rav. He said something very interesting. He has very, very high standards of kashrus. He says, but whenever I go to a family affair, his whole family's from. Right? Not talking about eating non-kosher food. He says, whenever he goes to a family affair, he eats whatever food's there. He's more makbid on the family than his own standard in kashrus. There's going to be things that he wouldn't bring into his house. It's kosher. It's 100% kosher. It's not a problem. It's not the highest standard he likes to keep. Okay, so he wouldn't eat it in his house. Okay. But if he goes to, he told me this 30 years ago. Now again, he's not talking about not eating non-kosher food in my non-religious parents' house. That's not what he's talking about. That you can't do. He's talking about, instead of badatz of the Eidach Haredis, it was Rav Reuben, which he might not eat. Okay, fine. Is it kosher? It's 100% kosher. It's absolutely kosher. Might there be a higher standard? Yes, there might be a higher standard. Is that higher standard available for me? Yes. So I might decide I want the higher standard. If it's there, I'll use the higher standard. Why not? Right? But is the other a good standard? Absolutely 100%. No problem. Okay, so someone wants to give you a Lexus instead of a Toyota Corolla. Okay, I'll take the Lexus. Why not? It's a higher standard. Is a Toyota Corolla a good car? It's a great car. It's a car. No problem. But meaning it might be that my standards in Yiddishkeit should be as high as my standards in Gashmias. Right? Most people have high standards in what they like in Gashmias. They might not be able to afford it all, but they have high standards. If they could afford it, they always want the best. Okay, that's reasonable. Why not? But they have the same standards in Yiddishkeit. Don't have higher standards in Gashmias than you have in Yiddishkeit. I'll do with anything that has a stamp of kosher on it. I'll eat it. I don't care. Right? But the electrical system in my house has to be absolutely the best, and there's the computer and all the rooms and whoa. Maybe I've got misplaced priorities here. The scotch at the Farbrengen has to be the best single malt. But I don't have to listen to what the guy's talking about at the Fabring. No. You can drink gasoline, but just listen to the guy talking. That you should also have good scotch, why not? So that's being bottled to the Baal HaRatzon, right? Yeah, I mean, you can. The Frierdiker Rebbe once went to visit Lita, Lithuania, and he was walking around yeshivas, and the Rosh Yeshiva were taking him to different yeshivas, and he went to different yeshivas, and he came back and talked about how unbelievably impressed he was from the incredible covered for Torah and Talmud Torah. But there were certain things that he noticed and he made note of, and he was walking around in the dorm of a yeshiva. So he walked into one of the dorm rooms, and there was a boy who was in bed already. The Rosh Yeshiva was showing him around, and the boy had his yarmulke on the table next to him. So he said, well, "Why aren't you wearing your yarmulke?" So he said, "Because you don't need a yarmulke if you're not walking." We talked about this the other day. If you're not walking 6 amos, if you're not walking 4 dalet amos, about 6 feet, so then you don't need a yarmulke. I said, "Oh, okay, it's true." It said, "Okay." So then he went into another room, and there was no negelwasser by the bed, but there was a sink on the other side of the room. So he asked the young man, "Why don't you have negelwasser next to your bed?" So he said, "Well, there's a sink at the end of the room, and there's a kvart over there, and this whole room is considered," and this is also brought in halacha, "this whole room is considered dalet amos. This room is all 1 dalet amos. So you're not allowed to walk 6 feet without doing negelwasser, but this whole room is considered 6 feet, so I can do negelwasser over there." Said there was one other thing, I don't remember what it was. Tzitzis. He wasn't sleeping with tzitzis. There was another kid. So he asked about that, and he got some answer. I don't know. Lila loves much tzitzis. Lila is not the time for tzitzis. True, there's no mitzvah wearing tzitzis at night. Right? That's why I say urisa meson. Urisa meson doesn't mean they have to hang out and you can see them. It means tzitzis is a mitzvah of the day, just like tefillin. Okay. So then when he was walking in the hallway with the Rosh Yeshiva, he asked him, he said, "How much Torah do you have to know before you don't have to do anything?" Because everybody had a reason, Al Pi Torah, not to do this. And it was a perfectly good reason, Al Pi Torah. But if I'm bottled to the Baal HaRatzon, what am I looking for? A way not to connect to him? Al Pi is Ratzon? Or a way to connect to him? And I don't care, if this connects me to him a little more, so that's what I'll do. That's what the Rebbe is saying here. Nasav and Ishma is the bittul to Baal HaRatzon. We'll stop at the end of the paragraph. Shalamayla mi bittul HaRatzon, which is beyond simply being bottled to the will and bottled to the Eibishter. What's Yiddishkeit about? Yiddishkeit is, so to speak, right? Jews like mitzvahs. Couldn't care less about mitzvahs. What do we like? Like the Eibishter. What's the Eibishter like? Mitzvahs. We're in. That's a different way of looking at it. Right? Not because we don't like mitzvahs. Of course we like mitzvahs. Why? Because the Eibishter likes mitzvahs. Not that we like mitzvahs. The Eibishter likes mitzvahs, and we like the Eibishter. So whatever he wants us to do, we'll do. And you know what? We do it. We wrap black boxes and leather straps on ourselves every day and think it's normal. Why? Because the Eibishter likes it. Why does he like it? I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, bemet, black boxes and leather straps. You couldn't have think of anything a little more spiritual. Well, it is pretty spiritual. Why is it? It's not, but it's not. We're not into spiritual. What are we into? Godly. Is this godly? Yes. Why? The Eibishter likes it. Baal HaRatzon. The Eibishter likes tefillin. I don't know where he thought this up. Okay. He also, likes. We wear this cape. We think that's normal too, right? Remember we had Sheva Brachas, had a party. It was actually a question as to whether or not we should have said Sheva Brachas there, but maybe we should have. But anyway, we're stopping in 1 minute. Someone asked me to learn with them online at 8:30, and I said I'm learning till 8:30, and then don't ask me why. It's a long story. But we made a party for our in-laws, my in-laws, not our in-laws, because they're not my wife's in-laws. My in-laws made a party for us in those days. They lived in Riverdale, New York. They made a party in the common room in their apartment building for after the summer after we got married. So my wife was already visibly pregnant at that point. We got married in the winter, and and we walked from the shul, which was 2 blocks away. I'm thinking, and one of my mother-in-law's neighbors said to her, "Gee, did you see what happened Saturday morning?" I said, "What?" "Well, there was a procession up the street, and there was a man wearing a big white cape and a pregnant lady, and they were leading the procession, and there were all these people behind them in the procession. Do you know what it was?" So my mother said, "Yeah, it was actually my daughter and son-in-law. We were coming for a kiddush in the shul, tried to explain to her what's going on. But this lady, because I was the only one who wore a talis home, because everybody else was nervous about wearing a talis home. But in Eretz Yisrael, you just wear a talis home, so who cares?" So I was wearing the talis home. So there was this man in a cape. Okay, so we think a talis is normal. It looks like a cape, right? We go to check into a flight at the airport and we think we look like normal human beings. We don't look like everybody else, right? So they probably look at us and go, "Whoa, this is like an interesting looking character." There's other interesting looking characters also, right? Okay, fine, say that. A Muslim dressed in the whole thing, so that's also interesting if he's checking into a plane in Pittsburgh. Okay, who said it? Is that way dressed? That's what he does. Okay, and the Indian with the turban and the big beard and those amazing mustaches. I don't know how they all get their mustache to look like that. They've got that great mustache there, right? Okay, so he looks interesting. He doesn't care. He thinks he looks normal because that's how he looks. Good, that's the way he's supposed to look, right? The bittul zeh, where's this bittul come from? We'll stop now. We had some in the shama. Bittul lebala ratzon, we had some in the shama. Because the etzem neshama just wants to be connected to the Eibishter. Shalamaylim yagiluyim, the neshama which is higher than the revealed states of the neshama, and that's bechinas yichida. Okay, so the next thing, so we didn't cover more grand in the mimer, but what we'll see, I assume not Sunday morning, assume Monday morning. What we will see is the Rebbe's not going to explain this all in the context of the Geula of the Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe on one hand, which was based on a lot of tefillah, and David HaMelech. When did David HaMelech say this pasuk, Pode besholom? During the civil war against his son Avshalom. So he's in the middle of a war, and he's talking about Pode besholom. That seems to contradict everything we've said. Well, no, now we have a certain understanding as to how there might be shalom even in the milchama, because it's all coming from a place of shalom, yichidish b'nefesh. But we'll see. And who was davening for David HaMelech? The soldiers of Avshalom. How does that work? They're fighting to overthrow David HaMelech. There's no question that Avshalom